Okay, we're gonna try this again because I just did like 5 minutes of talking to myself and I forgot to press the start button on the camera. So what we've got is I've got the air cleaner back off this Onan and we're setting the RPMs. I can go ahead and tell you that I actually have the high speed setting correct, but I'm about 400 RPM high on my low speed setting. I'm not sure why that is, and I'm actually okay with that. I would prefer it to be higher than low. So yeah, I mean, that's fine to me. So what we're gonna do is I'll just show you how to test this. I took a stab at the system, and I'm really not sure why we're high, which is gonna bug me. I'm gonna have to read on it, but I mean, like I said, it's probably fine being high. But I took a stab at the system, and when I first ran it in the previous video, I said it was a little slow, so I just moved it out one notch or one hole on the spring there. And basically what that means is when you push the throttle lever forward, it pulls it back farther. Not the big a deal there. Now you could modify, you know, these back here, because the lower you go, the farther it's going to push back. So realistically, I could probably take and plug it into the second hole here. And by putting it in there, what would I do is I'd probably get it above the 3450. 3450 is a spec from Deere. Onan says 3600. I run my personal 318 at 3525, 3530, something like that. I'm going to leave this one at 3450, and whoever buys it can do whatever they want with it. Overall, I think this machine runs really, really well. I think the next thing to do after I show you how to do this is we're going to put all the panels back on it, and we're going to start looking at a deck and figure out what deck we want to put on it, and then we can get it moving down the road. I do need to change the transaxle fluid. I have not done that yet. And other than that, I think it's ready to go on down the road. So overall, really, really happy with this engine swap. I think it's a really nice machine. I don't have that much more to do to it. So let's crank it up and I'll show you what I did. Basically, to test the RPMs, I've got this piece of reflective tape, and I have a reflective tachometer that I picked up a couple years ago. Seriously, got this off of Amazon for like 15 bucks, something like that. It was cheap. So let's fire it up here. Like I said, you can kind of hear how it's high. Turn the PTO on. Which is perfect. Now I don't know, guessing the idle I think is around 1700. So I'd like the idle to be a little slower. About this idle because I can't even pull this back, and it decreases a lot. I wouldn't think I would need to adjust this right here, but we're going to try it. Oh, hey, there we go. I didn't think it was that far out of adjustment. You normally don't need to. Oops. So right at 1400. like I said, normally I've never had to adjust that very much, particularly coming from carburetor to carburetor, or engine to engine. It's not like I move that carburetor from one engine to the next. And so typically your range that you've got set up in your system should remain pretty close to the same based on the throttle travel. So that's just kind of unusual in my book, but you know, maybe it's correct. But I think we'll at least shut it off. I think now I can put the air cleaner back on. I can put the hood back on. I'll put the fender pan back on. I gotta find the fender pan bolts. I don't know where the nuts are for the fender pan. We'll get it buttoned up, and the only thing I have left to do is put a decent seat on it, which I don't know if I have a decent seat or not. I have my show seat for the 318, and I really don't want to leave a black seat on it. Might steal that yellow seat from that 318 right there. Not sure. Anyway, that's where we're at. So I'll have to see if I can. Seats are like 90 bucks, and I don't want to be perfectly honest. I mean, I've already spent too much on this machine to keep it whole, but it's whole, so that's how we're going to sell it. Because realistically, I could get. Ultimate goal here was to compare them, work on them, and then try to get me out of them at some decent price. I think we're falling a little behind on that goal. So, you know, I'll see if the budget allows for a seat or not. I don't know. But anyway, let me get the air filter back on there. I do need to pre-oil the filter. This was a filter that I had off of a 318 that I redid that didn't pan out. So it's never been used. So I do need to pre-oil that. Just put some 30 weight on it, massage it in. Then I'll put the air filter housing on, and we'll go from there. Now what I do want to do, I think I've decided what I'm going to do with that 83. So we have the P series engine here, and this is a late P series. Unfortunately, I do not have a A, B, or C spec P series with the breather in the valve cover. If you've been following Musty One's series, I guess that's his username, series on his 318 that he got for free for his channel, which is really cool. I think he's done a great job. I have been watching it. If you'll notice, the breather for that engine is not located here. It is actually located in the the valve cover right here. That covers models. The breather in the valve cover covers models specs A, B, and C. And if you look right here, can't remember how you differentiate that. I'm gonna have to go back and look at my notes. There's a way to differentiate the spec right here, but I can't remember. Or maybe it was A. Maybe it was A and B spec engines. I'm gonna have to do some research on that. But anyway, the early P218s and the B43Gs had the breather in the valve cover. The later engines had the breather in the block. Now, what's really interesting is there's actually a location in the block. So here's a block with that early style breather right here on the bench. Oh, this is it'll be right here. So I'm gonna have telling you what, all of this stuff's blurring together in my head. Trying to remember all this stuff. All the stuff I used to know, you know, like 3 or 4 years ago, and I've since forgotten because I haven't worked on many 318s in the last couple years. But anyway, there's lots of different little variations in these engines, particularly with regards to the breather. The air filter housing is different because of the breather. There's some different locations and whatnot, and the carburetor is a little different. But anyway, I'm getting kind of off topic. Back to what I was saying, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 83. I think is a little bit too much of a basket case for me to get it running and get out of it even money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 19 390 frame here, I'm going to leave it whole for a few months or a few weeks, depending on when I get to it. I did have to take the firewall off of it. That's for a different little project. And then I'm going to take the 83 and I'm going to take the 83 down to a frame. I'm going to take the engine out and everything. Panels are pretty much the same. And what we're going to do is I'm going to compare the B43G to the P218 in a comparison take apart video. Basically, I'm going to clear a spot on the table, so I'm going to work really hard to get a spot on the table over there. Put both engines up, compare them side by side, one right next to the other, and then we're going to go and we're going to compare the frames to one another and how the frames differ. So in other words, bolt locations, things like that, little itty bitty minor differences that really that ultimately made the machine better. As the newer the 318, the better the 318 got, obviously. You know, in terms of hydrostatic linkage, the way that the transaxle bolts to the frame, a lot of different little small things, and I'll cover some of that in some literature I recently purchased on the early 300 series, talking about grease zerks and things like that. But I think I have taken enough of your time for this little project. Next time you see this 318, hopefully it is whole again, and we're looking at it, trying to figure out what kind of deck we want to put on it. It'll either have a 50 or a 46. I'm going to take, of the 4 decks that I have, I'm going to take whichever one is in the best shape and the mule drive that's in the best shape and put it on this machine. I would like to be rid of this machine by the end of September. That's my goal. I would like it to move out of here by the end of September, mostly because life's going to get really, really busy as we get closer and closer into winter. Even though it's only mid-August, definitely got to start thinking about winter and clearing out all this for my truck, because my truck parks in here in the winter. Well, I've got a lathe coming for back there, so I've got to get all that cleaned out. Where the 820's going, we're putting pallet racking so I can get the round fenders in the back. Lots and lots of things to go on. Also, why this is so messy up here. So, like I said, take enough of your time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the comments on this series. Really, really appreciate it. Hopefully, I know I've learned a couple things from the comments, and hopefully you've learned something too. If you have questions, leave them below. Thanks for watching.